I was thinking about what Pastor says about like when people get healings in other nations, people are like a lot more excited about it, you know. And a couple people asked me at school. I got 2 more weeks left, almost done. And a couple people at school were asking me, "Oh, so how's your arm?" And I'm like, I mean, I have a story. I was like, well, let me tell you the story. So I told him the story. And uh, pretty much everybody I told was just like, what? They were just like in shock. And it just made me think like, how come church people don't act like that? Like in other nations, they might act like super surprised but I don't know. It was kind of eye opening for me because I just felt like I don't know. I saw the difference. Yeah, I saw how kind of. I mean, some of our people in here were just like, "Oh, cool," and maybe we're used to it, but I don't know. To me, it was a pretty cool thing. And I think we should kind of get back to those roots of like that kind of first love where those things are special. Whether that happens to me or somebody else, like I feel like that should be kind of a wow moment. I think it's kind of sad to see like how we just kind of treat it like we're going through the motions at church. Anyways, that was just kind of on my mind. But what I really want to talk about is something I've been noticing a lot in life lately. And I don't have like this elaborate message today. I literally just have one concept and thought. And I'm just, you know, depending on God, that He'll just give me the rest. Otherwise, it'll literally be 5 minutes. But one thing I really noticed in life is, like growing up, your parents will teach you like, oh, well, nothing's free in life. Everybody says that. Well, yes, it's free, but like, is it really free? And like, sure, it might not cost a dollar amount, but it's going to cost you something, right? It might cost you time. It might cost you anything, right? It could be a non-tangible thing that it could cost you. And like, I understand this concept, but like, as I go on in life and I see whether it's mistakes people make or things people lust after, and I'm not talking sexually, but like just things people want, or success or marriage or even just a simple fact of your relationship with God. I feel like the one thing I've noticed is in order to get that last 1%, 10%, whatever you want to call it, we'll call it 1%. That 1%, so let's say I could be in the world right now, not knowing about this church, and I could be happy, at least I think so, right? In my mind, let's say in a hypothetical situation, I could be happy. I could, maybe I drink, maybe I smoke. I feel like I'm happy, right? I shop on Sundays. I do things that I don't even know are wrong. That's what I do because that's the life that I live, right? But there's just that one thing inside you that's like, man, is that all there is to life? But like, pretty much 99% of you is satisfied, but yet there's just that one little like empty spot inside of you that's just like, it's almost like it's talking to you. It's like, I'm empty. And so, you might, for me personally, I would go out and, I'd go out to a bar and I'd meet somebody and, things go well and those nights are great, but then the other nights when you go home and you come home empty-handed or things don't go the way that you expect, there's that small voice in you that's like, you're empty. And I'm whispering because that's what it feels like. You'll be at home, and I'm sure all you guys can relate when you used to live back in your old life, you know. I vividly used to remember those nights. You know, and our mind tricks ourselves to remember, like Pastor says, all the good memories, but we forget those 99% of the memories where you were just empty, you know? But it's like, from a worldly perspective, oh, I have 99%, I'm happy. But then there's that 1%. If I was just fully happy or fully satisfied, you know, my life would be better. But I just feel like, you know, people chase this idea of happiness, you know, like that's the thing they talk about out there. It's like happiness, you know, here, you know, money can't buy, well, obviously, right? But they chase this idea of how do I be happy? Because that's people's real goal, right? People want money so they can be comfortable, so they can be happy. They want peace. That's people's goal in life. They want peace. You know, everybody's searching for that. And they might not understand what that means exactly, but we know what it means now. We're lucky. We know, we've given the revelation about how to obtain peace. And it's in God, right? But let's say you become a believer now, and you switch your lifestyle because you felt that emptiness, and you want a relationship with Christ. Because you want to be fulfilled. You want that last, you know, you want to grasp that 1% that you feel was unreachable. And so you get saved, and now you're realizing that 1% is a whole nother 99% in and of itself. Am I making sense? Right? So let's say that 99% costs you $10. That last 1% will cost you $1 million, right? Obviously, I'm talking metaphorically, but I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Like, I'll give you an example from music. I feel like my skills have been getting really good when it comes to music and just in all aspects. But especially when it comes to making music sound good, right? You get a bunch of tracks, instruments, and you have to mix them all together and make it sound professional, right? I feel like I'm getting better at that. But I know the sound that I like and that I want and how I perceive it to sound in my mind. But no matter what I do with software, there's just that last 10% missing. And I'm like asking my teachers, I'm like, I know the sound that I want, but there's just something that's not, they're just like the depth. Like, I don't know how to describe. You listen to like a professional pop song nowadays. It just has like this depth and this weight to it, right? It has like a weight. Like the song feels heavy. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? It doesn't feel like thin and like, you know, it feels like thick and heavy, and the voices are like really good. The instruments feel full, right? And it's like, there's like, I can't describe, there's so much software out there. Like there's a whole market. Like, just like, you know, there's Instagrams and TikToks, like they just like, it's a constant beast that needs to be fed. And it's like, oh, this new software comes out, it's going to make your music sound better. And like, to a certain extent, software can make your music sound maybe really good to the point where some people might not hear a difference unless you compare the two. But like for somebody who does this a lot, now I hear the difference, and I'm like, man, how do I get that last 10%, you know? No matter what I do, no matter how hard I push the software, I can't get the sound that I want. I can get close. I can get 90% of the way there, but it's just not like, I'm not satisfied. Like, just the best way I can describe it. And I'm thinking like, man, what is it, you know? And so, you know, like in professional studios, they use software, but like, I mean, they have, like for example, this piano here, this is a Nord, right? This is expensive. Weighted keys, like has 6 instruments in it, piano, organ, synth, bunch of effects, right? This is like $4 to $5 grand. One piano. So if I go right now to a website, I could type in the most famous synthesizers and pianos of all time. And there'll be, I know a pack. There's a pack that they sell, $500 or $300, $600, and on Black Friday it's $300. $300, you get 45 of the most vintage, iconic synthesizers of all time, 5 of the most best grand pianos, right? They basically record them, and it's just a complicated process, but they make the instrument virtually, right? And so somebody, I won't use the word naive, but somebody who's lured very easily will be like, dude, this piano's $5 grand, and I can get 50 pianos for $300, right? And it seems too good to be true. And that's another one thing I want to talk about. Too good to be true. You know, that used to really irritate me, that statement sometimes, because sometimes you get in a situation where you really feel it is too good to be true. And because of God, that situation is true. Like, that day that I left Zoom, and like that, I still feel that moment. I'll never forget that. I was like, wow, like God did this, you know? It was just like, I almost couldn't believe it. It was like, this is true. This happened. Like, I went through this season, and I'm out. Like, I made it, you know? And like, I still feel that even to this day, years later. And it's like, so sometimes that is true, but a lot of times for a majority of people, especially the world out there, when something's too good to be true, it's true. You find a pair of, expensive vintage Jordans on eBay for $35, you better not buy those because they're going to be fake, right? I'm telling you right now, I've been down that road, right? So why would somebody spend $5,000 on one keyboard when you can buy a package of 50 software for $300? And, when I first started making music, or not making music, but more editing music, I didn't know better, right? So I worked with the tools I had, and I'm glad that I went down this path, because then I wouldn't be grateful for better technology and better things, right? And as I'm going through my journey, I pay for a few subscriptions that give me really high-end software, and I feel like I can make the music sound much better now. But I know the sound that I want, and I know the sound that I like. And it's just like there's something missing. It's just missing depth. Think about this spiritually too. You meet somebody and you talk to them and they're a Christian, but there's just something there that doesn't feel real. It just feels a little fake, You know those people, right? Don't say any names now. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But no, but seriously though, I don't know what it is, but as I'm getting older and I've made some stupid decisions, and I'm still young, obviously, but, I'm not a teenager anymore, right? Like, I've learned some things. And so I feel like God's given me the wisdom now to see things differently than I would have even 2 years ago. And part of that is I'm really big now on, like for example, if I'm making music, I have to stay inspired. I don't care how good the song sounds. If I'm not inspired, I do not want to perform that song, because then what am I doing it for, right? If I'm not inspired and I'm not passionate about something, why am I up here, right? If I'm not passionate about my relationship with God, why am I even in this building, right? Why do I call myself a Christian, right? These are questions we have to ask. We can't just take the obvious answers. We have to really ponder on life, And at revival, I remember Pastor Kim was saying that God likes analog, So for those of you, there's digital and there's analog, right? Obviously, there's context there, but I've said this before, a lot of God's methods are very old school. Go read a book, fellowship with somebody, love somebody, right? Put your phone down, go on a walk, spend time with your family. Very old school methods about how a lot of people older than us were raised. And obviously God does new things, but a lot of his methods can be done in a very old school way. And I've come to greatly appreciate those methods, because what it helps you do is, one, be content, slow down, right? Slow down in life and realize what's around you, right? Like, oh, this is great. This, these flowers smell good. Like, it sounds cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason, right? You ever think why something is a cliche? Is because it works so well that it became a cliche. And so let's not forget why it was a cliche, right? And so, but you can't just say it now or presume it now without meaning it, right? Like, oh, praise God, right? Yes, it's cliche because it's real, but you can't just say it if you're fake about it, right? You got to be real about it. You got to mean it, and people can feel that. And so that's the thing I was talking about. I want to feel inspired. I need to keep that vibe and that energy in the music. And if I feel like that vibe is going away, I'm taking a break. Even if something sounds amazing, I'm not doing that song unless I'm passionate and inspired about it, because then there's always that thought in the back of my head. And we've talked about how when I speak to things and do things, and Pastor Kim mentioned it in his video, that when you speak to the water molecules, they change and they crystallize. Or Pastor, one of them, it was recent, and then I was like, dang, it reminded me of that again. And so, even when it comes to music, if I'm making something and I'm not inspired by it, that is going into my music. Do you understand this? So when people can feel you when you're talking to them, that applies to many concepts. So I can put my half effort into a song, and it could sound amazing. I might be forcing it. In the back of my mind, there's always that thought, oh, that sound, I'm just not feeling it. And then I come up here, and I can perform with a lot of energy, but because that was literally embedded into that song, that feeling of like doubt, people are going to feel that, right? If everything is sound and everything's a sound wave, people can really feel you. People can feel, that energy in music. That's why you can hear an amazing song and you could just not be touched by it. And you can hear a mediocre sounding song, or maybe the musicians aren't as good, but there's just raw energy, and you're like, oh, that's really good. You connect with it, right? Because that's feeling. You're feeling that person in that track, in that song. And so I started thinking like that's kind of what I really try to look at nowadays, is like, I don't want to just put on a show, right? Like, I want to be real on the inside, where when I talk to people, whether it's God-related or not, people can feel that I'm genuine, That's my goal. And because that'll translate to anything. That's going to translate to my music. That's going to translate to people I talk to. We're not perfect, but we need to get there, right? And so anyways, back to the 1% thing. So I'm thinking like, there's just that last piece that I'm missing. I don't know what it is. And so what I've come to realize is that, so this is like hardware, right? It's a physical, tangible thing. Software is computer. And so that's $5,000. The software is $300. But this just has a certain vibe and feeling to it. And it's better, right? It might not be $4,700 better than what the software sounds like, but in order to get that sound, you got to pay that price, right? In order to get the difference between this and the software, and that software is, how many multipliers is that? What times 3 is 47? 20, huh? Okay, 16. You have to pay 16 times the price to get a, let's just say, based on my example, you have to pay 16 times the price of 50 keyboards versus 1 to get a 1% increase in sound. Do you see where I'm going with this? 16 times the price to get a 1% increase in sound. So this is, let's say this is the best sound. In order to transfer, right, let's say I can get a okay sounding software for $100. I can get a pretty good sounding software for $225. I can get a awesome sounding software that's like 2% under how that sounds for $300. But I want that last 2%. No, you would think, oh, well, I just got to pay maybe $400. I'll get the best one. No, let's multiply that times 16, and that's how you get the last 2%. So I've been thinking a lot about this. Why is it? Okay, before I continue. So for the music, I have the software. It's the same exact analogy, but they have hardware of different things that process music that the software is copying. You see what I mean? Let's say I have one thing that can, piece of software that can process music. Let's say it's, let's just say it's $20 a month, right? I get a package of software for $20 a month. It's a subscription. But that same thing that it's trying to copy in software, that hardware piece, right? For one piece of processing for your audio, not 260 plugins or software that comes with the bundle, but one of those costs $4,000. And I'm like, what the heck, man? Like, I want a 2%, 1% increase in my sound, and it's going to cost me 15 times more. I'm like, oh my gosh, And so it honestly kind of upset me a little bit, right? And I'm thinking like, why can't I just reach that with what I have? And, obviously there's a lesson in being content. Don't get me wrong. Like that's a given, but this is a different angle here that I'm talking about. And I'm like, wow, this is a very interesting. And ever since I started thinking about that, because my teacher's like, well, you get what you pay for, And I was like, that's such a cliche statement, but it is the most true thing you'll ever hear, I'm telling you. And I started thinking like, this applies to everything in life. I started like really just thinking I have a lot of time when I have 50 minutes up on bar, 50 back, and I walk 2 miles, right? I walk a mile up and a mile back. So I have a lot of thinking time. I do reading, I do praying too, but, I have a lot of time to just kind of sit and think, especially when I'm walking. And these are the things I think about. And I'm like, so I started thinking like, okay, I thought about the Nord. I thought about the software I have, even microphones. You can buy like a clone of a vintage microphone, and it might be $500. Somebody copied it and tried to recreate it. But you want that real sound? It's going to cost you $10,000. 500 to 10,000. That's ridiculous increase in price, but the concept stands. And I'm starting to think like, man, is this just like a law that God like made when He made the earth? Like there's things like that are in place, right? Like you reap what you sow. Like I don't know what to call that law, but it's like you get what you pay for law, And it's like whoever wants to like be the champion to figure out that terminology, but it's not going to be me. And I started thinking like, man, and so I thought about God, I wanted to fill the emptiness that I had in my life before this, when I was out in the world. And to do that, it cost me, that 1% cost me, metaphorically, $20 million versus the $10 that I paid before to be happy. How is it that the 1% cost me, honestly, incalculatably more, right? It cost me so much more, you can't even calculate it. It's going to cost you everything, like Jesus says, right? And so then I started thinking about marriage. It's so easy to go in the world and go pick up some random girl and get what you want, okay? And you in that moment, you go home and you might be like, I'm the man, I'm happy, right? But that next day, that feeling's gone and you're empty again. And you're like, this is great, but the inside of you, you can't deny it. It's just not happy. And you're like, I need to fill this void. There's something, and the people who have that revelation that God is that answer, awesome, right? And so you go. And I already gave that example. And so you get married, right? You say, you know what, I'm going to tie myself down. I'm going to do this the right way. I've had my past, but I want to do things the right way this time. And to get that void filled, that might be that last 1%, you might have had a lot of fun doing the other 99%, but to get that last 1%, one person versus however many others, that is going to cost you in every respect. Money, time, patience, right? Pain. That, to me, that is a tangible thing, right? In order to solidify, and then let's go further. In order to even have a good marriage, it might cost you, depending, right? For those of us who are here, we might have it a little bit easier. But let's just say, let's say if I gave an average, 10 years to even get to a place where you're like, this is why I did this, 10 years of many arguments, a lot of money spent, a lot of time spent, a lot of patience, right? Children, for that last 1% that you wish you could just be happy, and it costs you everything. Okay, let's go further. You want a good car? You can go buy one. Maybe you can get like a nice Mustang can get you 400 horsepower. You want something that has 1,000 horsepower? Well, let's start increasing that price from your $30,000 Mustang to your $150,000 race car. That's a 5 increase in price. You see this? Let's say I want a good steak versus a decent steak. That's going to cost you 5 times more at a nice steak restaurant. That $25 steak at Outback, you go to a nice restaurant, your bill is, let's say, $300 for 2 people. Do you guys see where I'm getting at with this? So I started thinking, like, man, this is a thing. Like, I understood this concept all my life, but I'm like seeing it in everything now. And I'm like, this is how it is with God. Like, if we want to get to a place, right? Because I'm telling you from experience, like, and I'm still working to get there. Like, I want to get to that place where, like, I'm tight with God, Like, I'm feeling so much better now than I did even a year ago. But I want to be in that place where it's like, you're like in a euphoria, even if you're going through certain things, you don't care, I want to get there. That's where I want to be. So I'm happy and content in any situation. And that sounds cliche because that's Philippians, right? But it's cliche because it's real. But a lot of people haven't experienced that. But the people who have will preach it until you die because it's real, right? They can't tell you enough. This is real. I'm telling you, you got to do it. But it's going to cost you 99 times more than what you originally had. And so, let's pull up the verse. And I couldn't think of a verse that would help with this, but I feel like God gave me an answer because I was like, God, which one should I do? And then I was driving, and then this popped in my head. And so this is when the young, we'll scroll up a little bit. Other way. Oh yeah, keep going. I think I went too far down. A little more. Yeah, there you go. A rich young man questions Jesus. So, Matthew 19, TBT version, we know this story. So, right, originally when we think about this story, we think about like, it's going to cost him everything, right? And that's kind of the route I'm going towards. So, it's a lot of times it's preached like, are you able to give up this certain thing? And that's so true. Like, but I want to take the perspective of what I've been talking about this whole night. Then a young man approached Jesus and bowed before him, saying, "Wonderful teacher, is there a good work I have to do to obtain eternal life?" Why is this young man coming to Jesus? Because there's something that he's missing. He's empty. Why are you going to go ask for help when you don't need help, right? If you're fully content and happy, you're not going to ask for help. But if there's a need, you're going to go seeking for help because you need that filled. And when it comes to your spirit, that itch just does not go away, right? You have an itch on your arm, you scratch it, it goes away. When you have that spiritual itch, it does not go away. It just bothers you forever until you address it. Why would you call me wonderful? God alone is wonderful. And why would you ask what good work you need to do? See, when I see this, I think of Jesus kind of asking him like rhetorically, like, if you're happy, why are you asking? Right? Like if you're so boastful about yourself and you think you have it all together, why are you coming to me? That's how I see this statement. Keep the commandments and you'll enter into the life of God. And so Jesus gives him like a generic answer. And the guy's like, I've done that. And Jesus is like, obviously knows that, right? And the guy's like, well, which commandments? Jesus said, don't murder, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't lie. Honor your father. And when I first read this like before, I thought like, oh, Jesus is telling him. But when I see this now, I kind of sense some like Jesus is like a little like stirred up almost. Like you figured it out finally, Like kind of like when I don't remember the prophet, but he's like, oh yeah, I can't remember the prophet's name, but like, tell us if we should go fight, at Ramoth Gilead. And so the king sends to the prophet. Anybody remember the prophet's name? I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I'm in Jeremiah now, so I'm like, the word Jeremiah is just all in my head. Anyways, the king sends for the prophet. Micah? Okay. Yes. Oh, Micaiah. Micaiah, thank you. Yeah, go send for the prophet Micaiah because you have Ahab and then you have the other king of Judah because Ahab's for Israel and the king is of Judah. I can't remember his name, but he basically the king of Judah disobeys God's command and asks Ahab for help, which is Israel, so they can go fight a battle so they don't lose ground, right? And so the king of Judah's already made a dumb decision because he's on Ahab's team right now. But anyways, that the king of Judah has some sense because he has a relationship with God. but he's kind of in a bad spot. And so Ahab's like asking all his fake prophets, like, hey, are we going to win? And they're like, you'll surely take the land. You know, you're going to win at Ramoth Gilead. And then the king of Judah is like, hey, Ahab, like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't have a good feeling about this. Maybe we should ask Micaiah. Like, I know he's prophesied some things that have come true. You know, and like, he's the prophet of God. And so Ahab and the king send for Micaiah, and he comes. That's what it is. Micaiah, son of Imlah. I don't know how I just remembered that. But yeah. And so Ahab and the king of Judah send their false prophets to go to Micaiah. And right, we remember the dream where God shows Micaiah, hey, God, I was in the throne room and I seen all the angels around, and a spirit said, who's going to come and entice Ahab against, what spirit is going to come and entice Ahab and be a lying prophet in the mouth of these prophets, so we can deceive Ahab and he'll be killed at Gilead, Ramoth Gilead, right? And the spirit says, me. So that's that story. And so all the prophets go, and they're like, hey, look, this is how I interpret it. Hey, look, we got a good thing going on here. We work in the king's palace. Don't come over here and say something that's going to make us look bad. Otherwise, we're all going to lose our jobs. So just tell him he's going to win. And so they go, and Micaiah's like, and Ahab's like, hey, tell me, are we going to win at Ramoth Gilead or not? And Micaiah, and I feel this is how it's portrayed in the Bible. Oh, yeah, go and take Ramoth Gilead. You'll take the fight. You'll win. Yes. Praise the Lord, right? He's being sarcastic. And then Ahab's like, come on. Like, because he knows what the right answer is. He's not a dummy, right? And the king of Judah is probably telling him, like, dude, we should listen to this guy, you know? And so Ahab's like, come on, just tell me the real answer. Stop playing with me, right? And so he's like, okay, I see on the distant lands people are scattered among the hills, and basically saying, like, you're going to get destroyed. Don't go. And then Ahab's like, see, telling the king of Judah, this is why I don't bring him, because this is why I don't tell him to come here and tell me what God says, because it's always something bad. And the Jeremiah, that's what I'm in right now, and Jeremiah is saying the same thing. He's like, the God is saying through Jeremiah, like, you ask me, what does the Lord say? What does the Lord say? What's the answer? But yet you go and do your own way. And then you ask me, well, no, what's the answer? And God's like, you don't even want my answer. I'm not listening to you anymore, even when you go through something hard, right? And so he tells him, and then he gets mad at him because he told him the truth, right? And so that's how I see this statement. I kind of see it a little sarcastically. Jesus is like, okay, you're a young dude. You think you got it all together. Why are you coming to me then, right? And he's like, you know, right? You surely should know. You're right? Honor your father and mother, all the commandments, right? And obviously we know this isn't true, that he's saying, I've done all that. That's just like smoke in the air, because Jesus is the only sinless person. So we know that that's fake already. And so anyways, verse 20. But I've always obeyed every one of them without fail. Lie. The young man replied, what else do I lack? He's basically saying, like, yeah, I know I've heard that before, but like, I want my own answer, right? And why do you think an answer so, I wouldn't say harsh, but like this direct comes? It's because the guys, I personally think from experience, an answer that hard comes to you when you're trying to deceive somebody. When you're trying, like, remember I preached last time when God says you're trying to go your own way, and so the words you speak are just deception. You're trying to deceive other people, right? You're trying to deceive your authorities. So if you're hearing, you think you hear God or something, and then you're trying to deceive, or it's really just your own idol and you want to pursue a certain path, but then you want it so bad, so then you go and say, like, yeah, I know, I've already heard that, you've already told me that, but like, what else do I need to do? And God's like, okay, you don't want to listen then? Here's the answer then. Since, you didn't want to listen to the first answer, well, here's the answer you didn't really want then. And so Jesus is like, okay, if you want to be perfect, go sell everything that you have. Because you're rich, right? And you have it all together. So surely this shouldn't be a problem then, right? And so God basically called his bluff. Give your money to the poor and your treasure will be transferred to heaven. Then come back and follow me for the rest of your life. When the young man, and so there's a hint in here that shows that the young guy had an agenda, because the footnote tells it. When the young man heard these words, he walked away sad, for he had great wealth. The Hebrew reads angry. Why would you be mad if, right, let's say if you're really willing to give it up for God, then if God tells you and you get pissed off about it, then what's your agenda? You're mad because you had an agenda, and when that thing got disrupted, it hit the core inside of you, and you felt exposed, and so you blocked it with your anger. I've experienced this myself, okay? I know how this works. And so when I read this, I was like, oh, okay. See, you want that last 1%, it's going to cost you. And you might think that you have it all together, and so you're going to be like, you might go to pastor or to your authority and say, hey, and kind of sway your words in a certain way because you want this certain answer. And then a word like that comes. And that is representative of that thing that it was just, you didn't expect that thing to come your way, that kind of word. Oh, it came your way now. And now if you really want to be about it, you got to obey that hard word. And that's why Jesus is saying, basically, let's just read it. Do you understand how difficult it is for a rich man? Rich, okay? Let's just define this in another way. Somebody who treasures something that feels wealthy in something else than God, right? They have an idol or an attachment to something that is so valuable to them, right? To enter into heaven, in fact, it's easier to stuff a heavy rope, or other versions is a camel, through the eye of a needle than it is for the wealthy to enter God's kingdom, right? If you can't part with your ways and the direction you want, it's not going to work out. And the longer you prolong that, the harder that word's going to get. And it's going to get very difficult to a point where, some people even get martyred, right? Like, a lot of these guys in here got martyred the right way. But I feel like there's a different way that to be martyred, where Pastor talks about, like, because you've always tested that line, God's now going to come for an answer like this, or on your deathbed to be martyred. And it's like, okay, are you really about it? Do you really believe in me? Right? And I don't think it has to get to that point. I mean, if you're destined for that, that's fine. But some people are tested that way. I'd rather not be tested in that way unless that's my destiny, And so my point in all this is, think about like your relationship with God. Think about your marriage. And here's another point. Pastor always says that God has a high expectation on us. Like I told you last time, where my mom's always telling me, like, oh, suck it up, right? When things get hard. Like, I realized that was God, because while that could have shaped my personality in a certain way, there's good parts and bad parts to that. God has to chisel out the bad parts, great. But the good part of that is, I don't know what it is, but I feel like God has a really high expectation on me. Like, I feel like I can't even, what's the best way to describe this? Like, there's sometimes I get a thought in my mind and I'm like, oh, dang, this is tough, But like I know better nowadays where it's like God's not going to be like, oh, okay, it's fine. No, like God expects me to cross that finish line. Like there's a couple times during revival where I like stayed up till 5 o'clock in the morning. There's like a day or two I didn't even sleep, like leading up to that, right? And I was thinking like, this is tough, you know. It's fun, don't get me wrong, but like at the same time, I'm tired, you know. And I'm thinking like, you know, like something comes my way, and then it's like, oh shoot, I got to get this done in like 2 days. And I'm thinking like, I've been on the other side of that where I'm expecting God to like be like, it's fine, you know. But I know better nowadays that when pastors tell us that God has a higher expectation, he means that you do not back down, right? This is a very important concept, right? Like most people are willing to go 99%, but who is willing to go not just one more, but 50% over that, 150%, right? And like, I see this at school all the time. There's people that work really hard, and then there's people that just like blow people out of the water with their effort, you know? And I'm thinking like, I want to be one of those people, you know, like if I'm here to represent God, you know, like sometimes I wasn't able to turn in homework due to like, let's say I'm working on something here and it has to be done, then I'm just like, I'll just be like, you know what? This is how I thought in my mind. Like, look, if the teacher gets mad at me, I know I had a good reason. And every single time that happened, I went the next day and they're like, oh yeah, we'll just turn it in next week instead. And I didn't have to say anything. Every single time. And so, and so I go to class and there's, you know, this is not like, you gotta understand, this is not like a community college where like anybody can go, right? This is expensive. People pay for this education, right? This is like a very, I wouldn't say niche, but it's like, it's very specialized, right? Like, you want to be a professional in this aspect, you're going to pay for it, right? That's another thing. You can self-teach yourself on a concept and be really good, but if you want to be like the best, you got to put in the work, the education, right? Like, and that can mean many things. There's online classes, there's things, right? But the bottom line is you got to put the work in. And you'd be surprised, right? People paying, you know, this education for 1 year, you know, it's $25,000. It's not expensive. This is not cheap. And literally, people, there's 4 classes a week for a year, right? So this is very intensive. It's basically a job. You are there almost every day learning like it's your job. You're not going there twice a week like college and go there for 2 hours. I've done that. This is like intense. And I'm getting like, I got 2 weeks left and I'm like, holy crap. God, help me out here, please. Like, it's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of like weighing on me a little bit. Like, I'm like, got to push through, right? And I just keep thinking like, God expects me to go to that end. There's no option anymore. I'm not even going to bring it up. What's my point in bringing it up, right? Is it because I have an agenda and I want to get out of it? Stop, you know, like, get that out of here. I'm done with that. By getting objective, I'm going to finish it. That's who I am as a child of God. When I get a task, God expects nothing less than for me to blow it out of the park. That's my job. And that's what I aim for. And you'd be surprised. Oh my gosh. These kids, and some of them are not kids. I mean, we're talking like, you know, people my age are like mid to late 20s who are paying themselves for this education and show up once every 2 weeks. $25,000 a year. I mean, I get the kids that are like 18 and going in there. I mean, there's not many of those. Most people are my age because they know this is the thing they want to do. But like the young kids, I kind of understand because if mom and dad pay for it, then they are not going to value it, right? But even then, it's like, dude, be grateful. Like, show up to your class, you know? Even when I went to school for economics, I have a bachelor's degree in economics. And obviously, it's not the thing I liked, but like my mom would tell me, like, you got to have a backup plan. You know, like you don't know what's going to happen, because I always wanted to play professional sports. And it was so strong to the point where I didn't even consider getting a job, because that was like my everything. I trained so hard, and then I got hurt so many times. And that was God, obviously, but it's like you got to have a backup plan. And I showed up to my classes when I was going to Sac State. You know, I showed up. I got my grades. You know, it's not to boast. I'm just telling you, like, if we're going to be child of God, we got to shine, right? We can't be mediocre. We got to be that last 1%. We can't be the 99% like I'm talking about. We can't be that. We got to be over the 1%ers. We got to be in the 150th percent. You know what it takes to get there? That's a lot of work. You know, that is a lot of hard, sleepless nights, pain, sacrifice, right? And yes, I'm talking physically and spiritually, right? Having that relationship with God is going to cost you severely. And if you're not feeling pain, you're not doing it right. Right? And I'm not talking about pain like you made a dumb mistake, but if you don't feel like you're going against the wind, I mean, I don't know if you don't know God's ways yet, but it's an uphill battle for eternity until God takes you to a place where He can trust you, you know? And so, anyways, yeah, there's people at school don't even show up. I honestly don't have any respect for those people. You know, it sounds harsh, but it's like $25,000. Like, have some respect for yourself. You know, what about your reputation? Are you trying to get a job in this industry? You know, this is, it kind of stirs me up, you know, and I'm thinking like, maybe this is how God feels. Right? We over here want to do big things, but yeah, we can't even make God look good. Like, do you think God's not going to bless us? There's just no way if we have that attitude. We got to be blowing people out of the water. Like, there should be no competition. We have God, right? And like, I've been seriously motivated like lately. And because I see God, like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything special. I'm just like, I'm going there. I'm putting in my hard work. You know, like when you have homework for music, this is not like, oh, let me write a paper in an hour. This is like a 6-hour homework assignment. Make a song, mix it. This is like hours. It's 4 to 6 hours, you know? One homework assignment. What if I have 4 in a week, right? And I'm like, God, I feel like God expects me. You got to put the work in, you know? And so I put that work in. And I feel God working, because I feel like I'm attending class like everybody else, but yet my skill sets are far surpassed than everybody else in the class. And like I said, it's not to boast of me. It's just to say that if you put that hard work in and you make God look good, He's going to make you look good because you're making Him look good. And it's just going to keep bouncing off itself, right? God makes you look good because you're a representative of Him, and then it makes you look good. Why is Joseph number 2 man? Right? Why is Daniel number 3 man? Why is Mordecai number 2 man? Because they're representatives of God. They see them and they're like, that is a man of God. I believe in God. Even Nebuchadnezzar, right? The number 1 person has respect for the number 2 guy because he's holding his ground and working so hard, probably even harder than the king himself. And the guy's like, dang, like, I want to know your God. That is crazy, right? Imagine that. That's how it should be. The Elon Musk people and whoever else should be coming to us for advice. Not us being like, oh, I can't, wait to meet Elon Musk. Like, whatever, dude, I used to think like that. Like, oh, if I could just, meet this person, then it's like, why don't I be that person? And then people are like, oh, I want to meet him, That guy, he has such a great relationship with God. All the music he makes is amazing. Why not have that? Shouldn't we represent God in that way? Shouldn't we be like Pastor says, shouldn't we be the lenders? And like I said, it's cliche, right? But it's cliche for a reason, because that's how it should be. We should be the top dogs. And I just feel like if we're not striving there, why should God bless you? You know, like that's like such a real statement. Like, why should God bless you if you can't even put the work in? I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than that. That's another thing I've learned in life. Oh, I've overcomplicated so many things. Life is very simple. It's very simple. You want something, you work hard at it. You want the best quality? There's no shortcut. You're either paying, right, like, don't get me wrong. Don't go out and start buying expensive things because you want the last 1%. I've been there, okay? You guys all know this. But if, like, let's say I had the money for that, I'm not going to buy the vast amount when I can just wait and get the one. And that is totally representative of God. Just keep yourself faithful to your one, right? And this is so much better. And it's like, let me give you another example. I found that the sound that gets you that is the hardware. I told you this, right? And you've seen all the studios with the big like devices, the consoles with all the faders, right? That's that sound. That is expensive, okay? You can buy software that emulates or tries to copy that sound, and it sounds good. I have those, and they work great. But obviously, it's not even close to my season there, but I'm giving you this example to show you what it takes in order to get that last 1% professional sound that's like, wow. Like that wow factor. Those consoles, those are like hundreds of thousands of dollars. 3, 5, 700K, right? But those guys put the work in, and they made smart business decisions, and they got good clients. And so now they can justify a decision like that, right? So we can't look and say, oh, if I had that, then, I mean, that's true, but at the same time, it's like, why don't you put the work in and be there? I want to make awesome music. It's not just going to come for free, right? God's going to give it to me seamlessly as I just put my blood, sweat, and tears in it. And I'm really like upset at myself that I've always worked really hard, but I feel like God had let me experience the God will help me syndrome because we need to get out of this God will help me syndrome. Now, if you are a warrior for God and God's going to help you, okay, I will allow that statement to be used. God's going to help me. I'm confident in God. But if we're using God as a cop-out, this thing's a little hard, but I know because I have God, it's going to get me through. Get you through? What are we doing, right? Like, I've had that mentality before, and I hate myself for that, right? I'm not trying to be self-pity, but like it makes me upset. Like, I'm so grateful that I'm able to get this education because it's something I've always talked about. I want to be able to control the whole process, right? And it's like God is granting that. We have a whole team of people that can rap and make music. Everybody can make their own beats. We know how to record, mix it, master it, make it sound good. All in-house. That is a huge blessing, right? And like God's answering my prayer on that I've said since I was like, in high school. And I realized that whenever I tried to say like, oh, God's going to help me, it's really because look at your motive, right? Or do you just not really want to do something and you're just kind of like putting it off? And so you'll just be like, God's going to help me. I've been there. It's such a fake answer. You can't use that answer. God's not going to help you. God will give you shoes on your feet that won't wear out. But, I mean, I don't want to be mediocre anymore. I'm done with all that. I feel like God has given us so much ability that it's like, why would I just waste it? I have it at my fingertips. I have the ability to do anything at my fingertips. But yet, because I'm emotionally unstable, I'm going to use that to dictate my decisions and say, God will help me because I'm just at my maximum. Now, you might have a season for that, and God might show you, like, I'm the one that's going to get you there. I've had that season too. But now it's a different season for me now. Like that might have happened before, but now I feel like it's different. God expects nothing but 150% from me. And I that's ingrained in me now. And I just can't do it less now because I know God's going to be like, why didn't you do that? I expect that from you. You know, and I feel like this is the mindset we should have, right? In all areas, whether you're working hard, whether, you know, you're getting your education in something, your homework, that kind of stuff, like you're praying, you're reading. This is serious, you know. Yes, you can adjust. You have to adjust sometimes when time is a factor. I'm the prime example of that, right? But I no matter, even though I only can pray a little bit right now and read just a tiny bit, I do it faithfully. And I know God accepts it. And I don't have to feel guilty anymore like I used to, because I know myself that I'm putting in the work and I'm working hard, and I'm not lying to myself. Don't lie to yourself, right? Be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself and ask yourself, am I really putting in my best work? And if the answer is no, don't even think about praying for it. Just do it. You have to do that last step yourself. Otherwise, God's just waiting for you. He's just giving you shoes that won't wear out, right? And so if you, like I'm saying, if you want that last 1%, it's going to cost you, right? It's going to cost you 16 times more as a metaphor. You want the better sound? You want the better life? You want the better relationship with your wife? You want the better relationship with God? You want the better job? You want more money? You want this? This is not our motivation. Obviously, our motivation is for God, but the concept is the same. If you want the higher things, you got to put in the higher things. If you want the 1%, you got to be that last 1%. You can't expect that 1% to fall in your lap. You got to go get it and then outshine all the people that are in that 1% bucket too. I want to be that person. I want to blow other people out of the water who think that they're hard workers. I want to put those people to shame. Like, if I'm working for God, they don't have God, I should be smoking those people by miles. So that's how I'm viewing life now. And I hope you guys do too, right? Amen.